let's not mess about. Let's jump straight into it at the top of the action. I don't know where you want to start with this card because I look at UFC 290 and everything coming into it was a big fight feel. We had 2 title fights. We had UFC International Fight Week in Vegas. We had obviously all the expos and all the things going on in the week. We had Volkanovski at the top of the tree, who's become a bona fide superstar. And it's very, very rare that you get a card that delivers how Saturday delivered, because that was one of, statistically, the craziest cards of all time. So I just want to get your feelings straight off the top of the dome. What did you think of last night? Because that pay-per-view was outrageous.
You know what I was thinking even before that, man. I said, you know how hyped I was for this card.
That is true.
I think it was. I mean, even from the first fight, I was like, right, we're in for a treat. That was the absolute bomb.
Bananas.
I know, man.
That first fight was ridiculous. Yeah. That could have been fight of the night. That could be a fight of the year contender, sort of. We're going more to that conversation. I'm not saying it is, but I'm saying we're going closer to that conversation than we are just some random opening fight. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, man, that was, and then that was that. Who was the second fight? It was just that Aguilar guy, the Mexican.
Jesus.
My God, taking it straight out of. It was just like a carbon copy of Emmett versus Michael Johnson. Yeah, man. Oh my God, it's like I barely even blinked. That was basically I summarized the whole night. I'm just like, you blink and you miss it. Like, just first round finish after first round finish. There was so many. I think there was a new, was it strawweight record for fastest finish as well? Or maybe it was flyweight, one of the two.
Yeah. No, that's true. That's true. The women's strawweight, the women's strawweight knockout record was broken. The flyweight knockout record was second at 19 seconds. And there was 5 sub 1 minute first round finishes.
Jesus.
And it is a record. Wow. It is the first time that's ever happened. This card was insanity. The more I think about it, Jesus Aguilar, I've never seen a fight which, to me, I truly felt, and it epitomized thrill and agony quite as much as Jesus Aguilar. Because, as I said on the run-up to this conversation, we had International Fight Week. We had a massive card. We had a huge stage. We had everything set to be one of the biggest fights, if not the biggest fight card to date this year and for a couple of years. You were not the first person to say to me, and not the last person to say to me, that this is your favourite card ever. I got someone message me say, this is one of my favourite cards I've ever seen. Before they'd even watched it.
Yeah, that was on paper.
Before it had happened. So to deliver to that magnitude was crazy. And then to have Shannon Ross, who had an unfortunate night out last time in the UFC, then to travel all the way to Vegas, making the pilgrimage from Australia, and then the second fastest finish, which was a picture perfect right hand, which just left him stiff. That was devastating. And that really kicked off the card in a big way. A big way.
Yeah, man. Unbelievable. And Cameron Simon as well. Statement for South Africa again. He just keeps improving. It was quite a weird finish, though. It was it Mitchell he was fighting? He was
But that's how they fight.
It was strange, wasn't it? It was like, but it was almost like I don't want to say he quit because that's taken out of Stephen A. Smith. I don't want to go like that. I start acting like Stephen A. Smith talking like that. But it was almost out of nowhere. Do you know what I mean? He sort of he started very fast and then instantly just burnt out. And I don't know if it was a cardio thing. But Simon just took over very quickly, and it was great. It was a great grappling showcase. Just gradually progressed into mount, and then just got the finish. It was very well done.
As you're saying that, I'm just thinking that I think that's exactly what they do. CIT, I believe the gym is in South Africa, and you've got Duplessis there, which we'll come on to in just very hot second. But that's exactly what they do. They come out and they set this pace, which is high, but it's not too high for you to say, okay, I'm not going to quite try and go there. I'm going to match them. They're not doing anything too crazy. And then all of a sudden, there's just this shifting point when you realise that they're quite strong, they hit quite hard, they're grappling sticky and strong, and their punches hit intensely, and their cardio's at a point where you think, oh, they're going to do this for 15 minutes flat. And they're going to do this at a very high tempo. And then you start to see this mental shift. And when you saw Simon, all I could think was, this is a mini Dricus Duplessis. This is a mini Dricus Duplessis. The exact weird tempos they were flowing off, the weird sort of transitions, it's kind of orthodox, it's kind of unorthodox, it's always a weird tempo to everything they do. And I thought, oh my goodness, they're going to do it, aren't they? And I said to you before this fight, and I'm going to go straight into it because I don't even care. Like, there's no order to this, you know? Like, what? This is UFC 290. It was batshit crazy from the first minute. So we do what we want with the order.
Yeah,
because
let's.
Before the fight, I said to you, there's something in the air. I have this feeling sometimes, this sixth sense, you may call it. And every time to time, I just get this feeling where, oh, it might just happen. It might just happen. I get this feeling where I've heard a few interviews and a few sentences I like the sound of. And then I think of a few things. And then I see the fans getting overzealous, overconfident. And then even some of my own first initial doubts and thoughts. And I'm thinking, whoa,
that's
hold
what
up.
I'm saying. You didn't have you shouldn't have the balls to go commit for it. But
no, but the thing is even if I'm transparent and honest, I still said to myself, I still think Rob wins. But I said it like that. I still think Rob wins, but I think he's going to win. I was really around that conversation, and I was on my live stream and I was saying to people, expect the unexpected here. Expect the unexpected, because like I said, he finds a way to win. And one thing which impressed me the most is I knew that he had skill set, and I knew he had tenacity and ability to just not quit on himself and fight for every position. But what I did underappreciate, which I've got to give him even more props to, even though I was giving him a lot of chance going into this, his game planning and his homework and his film study was just so impressive. He'd gone away, he'd analysed where Robert Whittaker was weak or where he'd been compromised, because he has so few flaws. Exactly. It almost highlighted it even more. And he picked up on that southpaw read, which we've seen before, by the way, in the Adesanya fight. When Adesanya had success in the third fight, the only time he dropped him, I believe, it was from that southpaw stance where that left hand went straight down the pipe and it dropped Whittaker. And we saw it against Cannonier. So Dricus Duplessis has gone away. He's done his homework. He's come with that read. And even though we've seen him switch stance before, he came out straight away and I said, oh, he's giving him a southpaw look from the get. And I thought, wow, this is super interesting already. Because he's already making those adjustments. And I found that super interesting. And it gave him problems. And that was one of the craziest upsets for the fans' expectations that we've seen in a lot of time. But not on skill. What did you think?
I have to say, he proved me wrong on every account. I want to make a formal apology to South African fan base, because I was absolutely, I said it was going to be a complete, I thought it was a mismatch. I really did. But I have to give him credit. It reminded me of, I said last week how the unorthodox style of Yair could cause Volk problems. And we'll get onto that, obviously. But in reality, it was the case of that for Dricus. His style, he fights in such a weird way. It's almost like, this is kind of a compliment to him, but he kind of looks like he's drunk. And he just sort of wades around. He doesn't look like he's a fighter when he fights, but then suddenly he's every attack he's hurting. He's hitting, and he's hitting hard, and he's landing flush, and it's like, this is working. And then you see it just take over, and gradually I saw it just shift, and I didn't really want to believe it, and I didn't want to say it was happening, but he was just after in that first round, it just gradually went towards Dricus' way, and then he got that takedown in the last minute or so of the first, and Whittaker was on his back.
Talk to me about that takedown.
I know.
That was a head and arm throw. That's women's MMA. He just done that to Bobby Knuckles. What am I witnessing?
I know, man.
What was I
the
witnessing?
Elbows. Yeah.
I knew he was skilled. I knew he had skill set. I knew he had things in his arsenal and his locker. But to think that he's going to go out there and just get Bobby Knuckles in a headlock and toss him to the ground, I think everyone needs to have a serious conversation about this Israel Adesanya fight. And I mean that dead serious. I mean that deadly serious, because we can look at striking and you can say, okay, this about Duplessis. Forget anything that you could possibly come back with. He just outstruck Bobby Knuckles. We've seen that, documented. He outstruck and managed to get to his wheelhouse with Darren Till. Say what you will, but he's a phenomenal striker and Muay Thai guy. Say what you want, but we've seen him go through Derek Brunson. And I said before this fight, I said, what did I say to you? I said, if his name was Israel Adesanya and he'd beaten those names in the run-up, we'd be having a different conversation because of the style. And guess what? That's exactly what's happened. He's beat the Derek Brunsons. He's beat the Brad Tavares's. He's beat the Darren Tills. He's built the Robert Whittaker's. Now we need to start looking at him like an Israel Adesanya because he's got the kickboxing record to go with it. But you know what he doesn't have? What he does have, he's got that grappling ability. And he's even said before, they've grappled and he's manhandled him. And yes, that was many moons ago when Israel was barely grappling. It was 2015 where actually he would have been grappling the most because that's when he transitioned into MMA. So he would have been trying to bridge that skill gap. So he would have been at least in those grappling rooms a lot. And he manhandled him. And you probably are lying to yourself if you don't believe that he would manhandle him in a grappling situation now. Because the strength and the transitions and the body locks and the figure of fours and the aggression.
Yeah.
We need to start having this conversation. Am I getting ahead of myself?
With you there.
I don't know.
No, I mean, I agree with you that it's a...
He just headed on through Bobby Knuckles. Yeah. Like, well, I'm on red alert. I'm on red alert. Like, and everyone needs to be. I just don't think we even understand what we witnessed yesterday. It was actually ridiculous. We actually saw someone not only out-grapple and just out-dominate and big brother Bobby Knuckles, but outstrike him. No, that is not how that was meant to go. And we may have seen Israel Adesanya dominate him with the striking at times, but we've never seen him dominating both grappling and striking that aggressively. Wow.
I mean, I think in the case of that matchup versus Adesanya, I mean, I think it's a case of, you know, if he's on the ground, if he gets him there, that's where it's his realm. But it's a matter of actually getting him to the ground in the first place, because we know Adesanya's takedown defense is it's not exactly it's good, but the reason people struggle to get him down is because of his positioning, his footwork, and his defensive striking. He's able to keep everyone off him in a way because people are so afraid of the counter, and I think that's such an advantage for him. So I'm still, if that matchup does happen, which it looks like it's going to, I'm still obviously firmly going to pick Adesanya.
Oh, I'm going to drop a hot take.
If I get proven wrong,
I'm going to drop a hot take, and I'm going to do it. I'm just going to do it now because it's not even acting on the moment. It's just sort of, I'm just on the spot putting pieces of the pie together in my own head.
All right, this is on record though. I'm just
no, easy, and I'll come out and say it with confidence. I genuinely will come out and say it with confidence. I wholeheartedly do believe what I'm about to say. I do believe Israel Adesanya is probably the greatest middleweight of all time. Yeah, of course, there's conversations with Anderson Silva. We can have that conversation.
Not Anderson Silva.
It's irrelevant. He's either one or two.
Yeah,
he's the best, essentially. He's that level. That's what we're talking about. I think Dricus du Plessis beats Israel Adesanya. I think Dricus du Plessis beats Israel Adesanya. I do. That's what I believe. Because before that fight, I would have told you it's possible for Dricus, probably against anyone, he does a great job of, by hook or by crook, crashing into range. And whether he does that with good defensive structure and good footwork and good height guard, no. But does he get there? Yes. But then what I saw from him yesterday was actually, oh no, hold up. There's a bit of method to this madness. And he's actually got weirdly good footwork. And he's actually getting to his positions quite well. And he's actually putting things behind his advancements to help him get to his positions. So I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, of course, Izzy on the counter is just so impressive. You're naturally going to go to the narrative. He's going to find a counter off of it. And that's a very reasonable argument to have. But in 25 minutes, can I see a world where Dricus can eat by the way, very well documented chin. Can I see a world he can eat a shot and get into range? Yeah, I can see that. Can I see a world that he just manages to crash into range and manages to land just a one-off jab? He's not like he's immune to getting punched. He can still get jabbed, you know? Yeah, I can see that happening. And then can I see a world where he just gets double unders and a body lock? Yeah, of course I can. And then when he's there, he is a freakish athletic specimen. Like, there's no two ways about this. The size of him, the only thing the commentators kept mentioning when they bumped into him on Fight Week was the size of him.
He's big.
The absolute physical, like, imposing nature of Dricus du Plessis. And Izzy's big, 6'4", he's dense, he's got big limbs, but Dricus is built like a brick shithouse, and you can see that strength. And usually the thing with that is you go, okay, but you've got that, but you have to give up something. You can't have it all, mate. Okay, so you got to give up a bit of conditioning. But oh no, unlock new level, new mythical fighter, two-nostril Dricus du Plessis. And he comes out and he's not even mouth breathing in a second round with Bobby Knuckles. And he's starting to piece him together on the feet. He's throwing in some to the floor with a head and arm like it's women's MMA. And then he's just landing body shots and finishing combinations with Bobby Knuckles against the cage and just finishing him. Who said that was going to happen? We need to look at him with every dead serious intention that he's going to be champion, because that is a more... If we look at it pound for pound, if we just go performance, that, to me, that's a more impressive performance than Israel's first fight against Bobby Knuckles.
You think? Yeah. I think, well, yeah, if you look at the stakes, I think so.
I can't look at it any other way.
I think what really impressed me, everyone talks about the cardio of Dricus, but for me, it was freakish. Not just, I know you said he's defensively responsive, he was so defensively responsible when you're talking about the foot, but what really impressed me was his high guard, his ability, he was ready for those shots. Nothing really landed flush on him at all. You know, he looked very calm in there. It's like he'd done it a million times before. And, you know, he hasn't fought a guy like Robert Whittaker, and I think a lot of guys can melt under that pressure. You know, if you look at his resume, it speaks for itself. But he looked completely ready, and as you say, he studied the tape. He was there to fight, and he proved that he was better. He was. I honestly, it was that moment where not after he dropped him, you know, when he dropped him with a jab, it was just afterwards where he caught him clean with it. I think it was the right hand, and Rob started running away, trying to circle. As soon as I saw that is the body language. You know they're absolutely done. And it reminds me of Chandler versus Oliveira. Same premise. It's like they don't know where they are. Exactly. There's nothing you can do. They're going to get clipped, put against the cage, and then finished. And as soon as that happened, I was like, yep, he's going. And I didn't want to believe it. And then he crumpled down. And I was sort of hoping that the ref was just going to let it run. But it just, you know, what can you do? It happened. It's almost like we're in the wrong timeline. That's what it feels like.
He wins. There's nothing else to it. It's what I said before the fight.
It's unbelievable.
And this is why I was actually shocked by what I saw. I would be lying if I said I'm sitting here not shocked, because I was shocked. I wasn't shocked at the result at all. And that's why before the fight I probably picked Bobby Knuckles, because I thought, yeah, he probably. But I was, for him to win, because he's a documented winner. This was my point. Kickboxing, documented winner. MMA, documented winner. He was 19-2 going into the fight. MMA professional, documented winner.
Wow.
And that's high-level MMA as well. That was not scrubs. I'm pretty sure he was in KSW, which is high-level. Kickboxing, high-level. You know? So he's documented to win, and he finds a way. And now we're starting to realise his skill set pretty bloody good. And the sky's the limit. And he's talking about, I want to be the guy now that doesn't get beaten in X amount of time and all of this. And you start looking at it on paper, you start going, yeah, he's got a really good chin, actually. His conditioning's kind of crazy. He could probably push an insane pace for 5 rounds. Oh, he actually hits very, very hard. And even a jab is almost like a backhand, because he switches stances so much and he's so powerful. His left hand's as strong as his right, and his right's as strong as his left. So his jabs are feeling like straights, and his rights are feeling like straights, and everything is feeling very bloody heavy. And all of a sudden he's got his grips on you, he's thrown you to the floor. He's very sticky, he's got 2 hooks in and a body lock, and you're thinking, yeah, this was a bit harder than I thought this was going to be, actually. And Dricus du Plessis is a bit of a nightmare. So I think we all have to sit here and just respect the skill of this man. But
I think we do.
Let's just go into it. Dan Hooker.
Oh, wow. Oh, yeah. You know, all the time I was watching that, I was thinking about our predictions. And I was annoyed about this one because that basically busted all of my bets that I made. Not that I put a huge amount of money on, but it's.
What did we say before the fight?
I genuinely. You said you had Hooker. I can't remember if you said it was. Yes, this is why I'm annoyed. I can't remember if you said it via TKO or KO or what.
Yeah.
I had Turner by decision. At least that's what I put on verdict. I think I said the same here. I definitely said Turner. And he started off strong. He started off how I expected it to. And I think I realised it's not really a conversation that how good Dan Hooker's chin is.
No.
I think everyone knows, but he's never really in those conversations for some reason.
No.
Because he really should be. Because that head kick, I do not understand it. Inhuman. It's like, sure, it rattled him a bit, but he recovered remarkably quick. That would put the lights out of almost anybody. Unbelievable, yeah. And Jalen looked really strong, as he does. You know, that he had that extra bit of length that I think that really helped him there in the first few minutes. He was popping. His shots were just landing harder. Hooker couldn't really land anything clean on him. And obviously there was that game plan switch in the second where Dan the commentator said it, just turned it into a bit of a dogfight, took it to him, didn't just completely disregarded, Jalen's power and his danger and just went forward.
Yeah.
And that clearly paid dividends for him. As we saw, he so nearly got that finish. We saw Jalen's face when that rear naked choke was sunk in.
Wow. Forgot about that.
Seconds
that
away,
incredible.
man. I know. And it is an interesting topic because obviously Dan got the decision. But I think a lot of this, actually, of the decisions, just in general, not just obviously last night, but it's a bit of a question about the rule set in MMA. Do you know what I mean? It's always a bit unclear and a bit grey because, you're judging over 15 minutes, not the last minute of a round. And you talk about damage. How do you score that round? It's a strange one because obviously I'd rather Jalen would have won, one for my predictions and two because of my bet. And I wasn't mad that Dan got the decision, but I did notice there was a lot of discourse online about how that round should have been scored, purely for the fact that Jalen was winning the majority of that second one quite convincingly until the last 30 odd seconds or so.
It's just
an interesting one.
Yeah, it's one of those ones. It's a grey area, and
I don't like that.
Yeah, it's just a grey area. And
it shouldn't be a grey area. And there should be a way of deciding that.
It's like that so consistently. But coming into the matchup, I was perplexed why every time I went online, people said Dan Hooker's washed. And I just could only think that you're not paying attention if you think that. And sometimes this is just the honest truth. Fans add no nuance to losses. They'll just put it down to either making excuses or they won't even know the nuance to add it to context. Because when you look at Dan Hooker, you look at who he's lost to the best of the best. But then he's done it on stupid things. He's fighting the likes of Arnold Allen on an 8-fight win streak, pound for pound, one of the best featherweights in the world. He's fighting Islam Makhachev, pound for pound, one of the best in the world, on a week's notice, quarantined in a Vegas hotel, doing it for a big payday because no one else would possibly take that fight. And people are thinking he's washed because he's losing these fights. He has a camp, and then he's given someone like a surging Claudio Puelles, who's apparently going to knee bar him because he's on a 5-fight win streak. He embarrasses him and makes him quit and actually gives us one of the most questionable performances of recent times at Claudio Puelles against Dan Hooker, where he made him literally quit and just lay on the floor and give up from body shots. So we have to put some respect on his name.
We do.
Then coming into it, I said if there's any person Dan Hooker would actually want to face, it's probably someone like Jalen Turner, because he's been getting those looks so consistently for so long with the likes of Israel Adesanya, like the likes of Carlos Ulberg and Black Diamond, all these people with a similar sort of frame and style to Jalen Turner, where you've got that longer, rangier kickboxer. And as you said, when it was pretty and it was on the outside, it was always going to be Dan Hooker. But I think he needed a little bit of time to, number one, get those reads, make those adjustments, but also just warm into the fight.
You mean?
Yeah, Dan, I mean, sorry.
You mean Dan?
Or... Yeah, no, I mean Dan. He needed a little time to...
Yes,
I think Dan Hooker's so used to being in these sort of 5-round fights and these longer fights and sometimes just getting into it a little bit. The first round was a little bit tentative. There wasn't a lot of output. There was quite a lot of respect from both. He wasn't really getting his hands dirty. And then I think, as you said, as it warmed up, he worked his way into range. He made it a bit dirtier. He got into that dogfight. And then as soon as it looked a bit uglier, it was always going to be the clinch work and that just dog in Dan Hooker that was going to prevail. But when he ate that head kick, I said we have to,
Crazy.
on one shot alone, put him in the pound for pound chin list because
Yeah, he's up there.
that was, for me
Absolutely.
personally, you can all have your own opinion to this. For me personally, as a fan, that was the biggest single shot I've ever seen absorb live and just
Yeah, I
eaten
can't think of
and
another one.
recovered. For me personally, it was
Yeah.
insane.
I mean, the fact that he didn't even, let alone, like, he didn't even get knocked down. It's just unbelievable. Like, let alone get, like, put out cold. He didn't even get knocked down. And that is just completely flush. It was unbelievable. And I think as impressive as it was, I think it does highlight maybe a bit of a weakness of Dan's game. As impressive as the win was, I'm not really surprised that your prediction was right. Even though obviously I went the other way. I think there is definitely something to improve there to tighten up his defense a little bit. He did get caught quite a lot actually, especially in the first, in the
Head
first round and
movement,
a lot
right?
of the second. Yeah, not enough of it.
Yeah.
Keeping his hands maybe a little bit up more, parrying away some shots. Perhaps he was sort of willing to trade and take, which is, we've talked about this before. It's okay for an extent. You can rely on your chin for a while. Same problem with Shavkat. I think is you can't keep relying on your chin forever because eventually you're gonna get put out, and that's just what's gonna happen. So I'd like to see that. I think that could, if tightening up that defense a little bit, I think he could really level up there. And it's a huge win for him, absolutely.
When you have a look at, and you know what made me laugh, just quickly, I saw things online along the lines of, Jalen Turner fraud check. And I just laughed because, I laughed so heavily because I thought, not only is Jalen Turner a UFC veteran, by the way, he's literally been in the promotion for so long. He's fought at welterweight as well. He's been around for a very long time, been at very good gyms, obviously worked with Perillo and Ruka and whatnot, got very good wins. Also just submitted Brad Riddell in 30 seconds, by the way, who's a top 10 lightweight, which is no easy feat. So there is no fraud involved. But what I was going to say about Dan Hooker is he does have a very similar style to, in a lot of senses, to Israel Adesanya. You can see a lot of their striking similarities where the front hand is a little bit low and it's sort of that rangefinder and shows different level and it's almost an antenna. Their long range back kicks sort of stabs and teeps and front kicks and things like that. You see similarities, but the thing that Adesanya does very well that Dan doesn't do as well is pairs that with the head movement. Because if you're going to carry your hands lower or you're going to have those sort of frames and build those hand fights and whatnot, you need to have a lot of head movement that goes with that because you don't have the defense of your guard. And he has those low shots, which is nice for things like uppercuts and jabs from weird angles and obviously throws nice straight shots. And especially when he's in the clinch, he's got those his short, powerful uppercuts and hooks. He's really, really good there, Dan Hooker. He's always fun to watch. You can't help but think of the Dustin Poirier fight when they're in the apex and they're in the pocket and they're just throwing hooks and uppercuts and knees. And it's some of the most devastating MMA fighting you're ever likely going to see.
I do want to say, speaking of uppercuts, you're going to love this one. Robbie Lawler, what a performance that was. Unbelievable. I mean, I kind of regret not betting on that because the odds were too good. And I was like, yeah, he's 41, but he's going to...
What were the odds?
He was like, I think on Bet365, he was like maybe 2.5 to 1.
No.
A bit more. No, I'm serious.
No.
I'm serious. And I don't know why I didn't put the money on it. I think the odds just scared me a bit. I don't know why I didn't trust myself there because Nico Price he's a good fighter, but he's not Robbie Lawler. And sure, he's 41, and we know how big of an impact age has as you get older. But Robbie Lawler, he's still Robbie Lawler. He looks very impressive. Regardless of how out of shape and not in it Nick Diaz was. Lawler himself, he looked like a modern fighter in there still. And I thought back to that, and I was like, he's going to take this. But I didn't expect him to do it like that. I got to say, that was unbelievable. And I couldn't be happier for him either. It was a brilliant knockout. It was great. Proper like dirty boxing. Just those 3 shots. It was uppercut, left hook, and I think another uppercut. Just completely slumped him. It was brilliant. It was the perfect fairy tale. And I think DC said it as well. We don't get that. You don't get that in MMA, in the UFC. Champs go out on their back. They go out down and out. And that's just how it goes. You rise and then you fall. But it's now's the opportunity for him.
Craig David, you rise and you fall. When your picture becomes tainted, that is so true as well. And one person whose picture didn't become tainted is Robbie Lawler. Because from start to finish, he was the epitome of a mixed martial artist. He was as violent, as beautifully violent as they come, but also as respectful and as pure a soul as you're ever likely going to see. And that right there was, first of all, criminal odds at 2.5 to 1, because anyone that's actually been watching him realizes that his skills are still very legitimate, and he's not fighting scrubs. He's fighting the likes of Brian Barberena, who's a very well-seasoned veteran of the game, who gives a lot of people problems at 170 pounds, by the way, who's fought the very best. You can't Brian Barberena's CV, his resume. Go look who he's fought, because he's fought the who's who at 170. So he's not fighting.
He nearly finished Leon Edwards, sorry. I mean, people forget that. He dropped him. And that is, no one talks about that. Obviously, it was quite a while ago, but, you know, it's just a testament to, Barberena is a very, very seasoned vet. So, yeah.
That's exactly the point. He's not fighting scrubs. And even though he's 41, there's some times in life where I was gonna finish that off with the fight is over, because that's the Craig David Rise and Fall lyrics. But I was thinking, why have I managed to interweave so many Craig David? I've been listening to that song randomly so much recently. I don't even know why I listened to it when I'm on the way to film. Complete random side tangent. But one story that I really wanted to share, because the thing that's so funny about Robbie Lawler is, the thing that's so fascinating about him, he has been a purebred fighter and mixed martial artist since the first day until the last. And I remember going to Wembley Arena, and we went to Bellator, and we were watching one of our friends fight. And there were all this commotion in the cage after a win, and they were doing interviews, and there was cameras and whatnot. And I just saw this one figure pacing up and down, just doing shadow boxing intensely with footwork as all this commotion is going on. My friend said, "Oh, look at that. That's Robbie Lawler." And as you can see, just in the distance, he's just there, just shadow boxing aggressively, cutting angles, throwing punches, getting a sweat on as he's working one of his corners. And this is at 40 years of age. And the reason I say that is because you really just saw then, this man lives and breathes fighting. Lives and breathes it his whole life, and he has been a shining, exemplary professional the whole time. And it was so nice to see him get such an impressive knockout, where he got that sort of plum clinch, and he was just landing heavy uppercuts and just pulling him onto it. That's just such a lovely adjustment, because when you're 41 years of age and you don't necessarily have that speed and the lateral movement, and maybe your knees hurt too much to do too much movement, if you can just sort of get someone in a clinch and do all your work there and use all your power, your skill, your boxing abilities, I mean, that's exactly how to win in those later ends of your career. And that's something that he's managed to do so well as well. So I'm glad that he got that promotional send out as well, because that was a nice touch.
Yes, I actually thought that was a Hall of Fame thing, because it was like that. It looked like that. I was like, they're going to really induct him right now. Which obviously they will in the future. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
They've already done it. Yeah, they've done it yesterday.
Have they?
Or a couple of days ago.
Did he get inducted?
Yeah, he got inducted. Yeah,
I thought you can't get inducted until you're retired.
No. That may be a rule, but this would have been an exception. And they'd done it because they'd announced that it was going to be his retirement fight. He'd sort of retired, if that made sense.
Oh,
so they inducted him.
It was. Yes,
Jose Aldo and
I didn't realize he was in that. I saw Aldo and
Cowboy Cerrone
and Jens Pulver as well.
Yeah, and Cowboy.
And Cerrone. Yeah, I didn't see Lawler.
Yeah.
Oh well. Oh, are you sure that wasn't for the McDonald fight? Because that
quite possibly
as well.
Maybe
it was for that. I don't
know.
Yeah,
no, you might be right there. To be fair. What we haven't gone into. Hold up, we haven't even started at the top 5.
Yeah, we haven't. Wow. I mean, you got that spot on. I wasn't surprised. I think it went, obviously it didn't go how I thought it was going to go, but I wanted to be right. I wanted to have the underdog pick. But I think as soon as we saw Volk get that first takedown, it was just, I think it was over from that first point. There was that one point where he rocked him with that right hand, and that just it was straight out of like rugby union.
Yeah,
that takedown, it was vicious. The one afterwards, after he rocked him, oh my word, I was in disbelief. It was just the speed of it. It was like he was there for just complete blood. He He was not having any of Yair's tricks or anything, and he just took him down and beat the hell out of him. And that next 20 seconds, and it was done. And I was, colour me impressed. Not surprised, but I got to say, yeah. I mean, I know he's one of your favourite fighters. He's always been one of mine too. He's just he personifies what it is to be, a professional mixed martial artist. He doesn't, he's always applying himself. He's always learning, improving, and he's always putting on a show. He's professional, but he has that sort of panache and ability to bring the fans over to his side without really needing to try too hard. And how many title defenses is that now? Is that number 5?
5.
5, unbelievable. Yeah, and he's only going to get stronger and stronger. I talked last week about age potentially being a factor because he's starting to, it's a featherweight. Obviously, we know how important speed is. The lighter you go, and that tends to be a big drop off as you get older. But he doesn't seem to be slowing down.
Nope.
It's still something to look out for, but because it can happen very quickly. But yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if he's got at least a few more in him for sure. And I'd love to see that Islam fight again because honestly, I think he can take it. I think he would take it if they fought again.
The thing that you touched upon, which is so impressive with Alexander Volkanovski, and this is one thing to say it, it's another thing to do it, live and breathe it, is the want and the will to improve and to learn. And when you get people at the top of the sport or as champions or as mixed martial artists at the pinnacle, it's very easy to sort of rest on your laurels and rest on your skill set and just think, oh, I'm going to be the better fighter that day. But this man actively goes out, seeks the best training rooms, the best coaches, and works on every facet and angle of his game so that whoever he faces, he can completely nullify. And if we're looking at Alexander Volkanovski now, then he must be in the same conversation as the likes of GSP, because when you're looking at people who can take your opponent's weakness and use that as a weapon of your own and to take it to that realm to then just win on simpler terms, now you're looking at that next level of champion where they're starting to become so good and so well-rounded that they dictate exactly where they want it to go because it's so unfair if they take it there. And that's exactly what Alexander Volkanovski went out and done. And I texted Colby Thickness, which is one of Volk's main sparring partners and training partners, before the fight, earlier in the day. I dropped him a message. I met him when I went out there, went down to the gym. I speak to him quite often. Incredible upcoming talent. I said to him, how you got this one going, mate? Always interested to get a view close to the source. He said,
Bang on the money, didn't he?
We'll be done in 3, ground and pound. I said, I'm glad we're on the same page. Exactly how I saw that going. And guess what? It went to an absolute T. And guess why? Because Alexander Volkanovski is a safe bet. And if you can say that about anyone in mixed martial arts, that's the highest caliber of compliment you can possibly receive. Because this is not a sport of safe bets, as we saw in the co-main event. So when you look at a Volkanovski fight, you can safely say, this is what's going to happen. And I don't have fights that I'm as confident as, or I'm as accurate in predicting the outcome, because that's how easy sometimes it can be with Volkanovski, because he's probably going to do everything he sets out to do and everything he game plans for. And if he doesn't game plan for it, he's probably going to make the adjustment to get him back on track. And then he combines it with the smartest minds in the game. And then you have one of the most coherent, the one of the most responsive, the one of the most skilled soldiers on the front line, which absorbs all of this information from 11-time world champion Taekwondo champions like Carl Van Room, like Craig Jones, one of literally the pound for pound, one of the most skillful jiu-jitsu practitioners you're ever going to see. The Frank Hickman, the Eugene Bem, he takes all of this information and he implements it under the brightest lights, the biggest pressure, the most skilled opponents, the most dangerous opponents, the pound for pound best in the world. And he does it with composure, with stoicism, and with execution to the nth degree. And every single time I watch him compete, I can't comprehend how he's operating at such a level, with such intensity and with such calm of mind. And again, it was why For me, he's pound for pound best in the world, and for why he remains one of my favourite ever sportsmen to watch, because of the mindset and also his execution. And for me, in my generation, he's one of my favourite ever athletes, full stop.
I completely agree with you. You're saying everything. You're saying all the right things. I absolutely agree. I think I said this last week. It reminds me in a way of Khabib, in the sense that he doesn't do anything you don't already know he's going to do. He doesn't do anything flashy, but he does everything to such a high level. He leaves no weaknesses. There's no corners cut, and you can't stop him. It doesn't matter. You can train all you want. You can watch all the tape. You know exactly what he's going to bring, what he's going to do. But he's so good at everything. You just can't stop him. It doesn't matter how much you excel in certain aspects.
Yeah.
As so good Yair is on the feet, Volk will do you one better. And he's not even known. He's known for everything, not just his striking. So he goes into other people's realms and he'll beat you there too. It doesn't matter. He's too good. He really is. I think that fight for me cemented him. He is the best featherweight of all time for me. I mean, you could talk about Aldo and Max, but I think to be honest, he already was. I think he already was, just by ability alone. And I think we need to appreciate him while he's here, because he really. I don't think there's another guy doing it he is. You know what I mean? I think the only person whose dominance you can really compare it to is someone like Shevchenko, but obviously it's fair to say she doesn't have the same caliber of competition as Volkanovski does. So it's a real testament to his ability that he beats all these elite guys and makes them look so easy, because they're all fighting below him, squabbling. They're like the peasants, and he's just the king. You know, they'll try and step up to the plate. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, because he will beat every single one of them. And I'm so glad. It is a privilege to watch him fight every time. So I'm glad we're going to get to do that at least a few more times.
You hit the nail on the head, because a privilege it very much is to watch him compete. And as you said there, you can watch Alexander Volkanovski tapes and you can see where he's been in danger or troubled or dropped, or you can see maybe weaknesses you believe you can exploit. The problem you have with Volk is he does not forget, and he's almost has this ability, this regrowth pack, almost as if he's playing a video game, where every time he makes a mistake, he takes this regrowth bandage to never make the same mistake twice, because he's thought about that and he's made the necessary adjustment for it not to happen again. So you may see a weakness, but it's not going to be there for you the next time, because he's already patched over it and he's already added those changes and those adjustments to his game. And he's not just doing that out of camp, he's doing that in the fight if he has to. And that's the problem when you're fighting someone like Volk, is until you get in there, and this is what I mentioned before the fight, until you've got in there, you've never fought a Volkanovski. You just never have. Because the sophistication of the front hand and the feints and the fakes and the hand fighting, and then the sophistication of the feints in general and the hip feints and the stance switching and the level changes and the footwork and the cutting off of the cage and cutting off of the cage out of both stances. Yair Rodriguez was trapped like a caged chicken. And I said he had to win that footwork battle and he had to corral him against the cage. And I haven't seen anyone do it as impressively as Volk just done it against Yair Rodriguez, because he has some of the finest footwork in Yair Rodriguez and some of the most intricate. And the way that he used both southpaw and orthodox and perfectly just cut him and just cornered him right into this central point here where he could just get his target and aim. It was just striking of the highest caliber. And yeah, we can talk about how he went to the ground and he nullified his striking and he beat him up and he built frames and landed heavy ground and pound, which, by the way, of course was an easy prediction, because that's what he's become so renowned for. But make no mistake, he completely dominated him on the feet before it even got there. Completely dominated him. Not necessarily with big hooks and uppercuts, but in terms of how he just nullified Yair to throw absolutely nothing, completely stifle him, and then set up his own strikes to take him down. I think that's one of the highest level displays of mixed martial arts I've seen in a very long time.
Yeah, I mean, I said, I know I keep running back to last week, but I said the potential path to victory for Yair was those body kicks, because that's what he's known for, and he throws them with bad intentions. But as you said, those stance switches completely nullified, kept Yair guessing. Can't keep attacking the same side. It was so much intelligence when he wasn't even engaging. When he wasn't even engaging with the air, but it's constant little movements, little adjustments, little things, just so many things going on. and just combining them all into one and blending it perfectly. And Yaya had absolutely nothing for him as a result. It was just, yeah, it was a masterclass. And yeah, I honestly, I have no other words for it. It was probably, I think that's probably his finest performance. It's up there, except from Max Holloway 3. I think that goes above it just a bit, just because of how good Max is and what he's done. But it's just maybe second fiddle, just about.
And this is what we're talking about with Volk. We're talking about his game evolving so much that he's going out there on 50-44 in Max Holloway, and then we're talking about him possibly having better performance. And you're saying, no, that's not, well, hold up. That's not even possible. Let's not have that conversation. But that is possible, apparently, because we're having that conversation. And yes, when I spoke to Joe Lopez, when I went down there, he said to me off camera, he said, the UFC called them and they said, okay, we've got 2 fights for you. He said, we can give you the 8th of July or wherever, 9th of July in Vegas, UFC International Fight Week against Yair, and then we can give you Islam if he wins that fight. That's what I got told originally, and that's what the UFC apparently proposed. So that was always in the plans. And then Dana comes out post press conference and he says, this is what gets me so happy. This is what makes me so happy about the situation, because Volk has risen to the top on resilience, skill set, of course, but tenacity and want to learn and ability to grow and develop as a mixed martial artist and as an athlete and become one of the best athletes on planet Earth, full stop. But the thing which is so nice is he's risen to the top with authenticity, and he's done it just on the foundation of hard work. And now he's in a position where I'm not saying he's the star power of Conor McGregor. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying he's starting to pull strings in the way that Conor McGregor could pull strings in the UFC, where Dana's coming out in press conferences now and saying he can do what he wants. He said that on record. He can do what he wants. He wants to go to he can do that. If he wants to go up to lightweight, he can do that. He can do what he wants now because he's earned that right, and he deserves it. And there's not a man alive now who can sit here as a mixed martial arts fan and go, yeah, well, he can't get that rematch. You can't say that because there's too many people that are arguing that he won. And then you go out and see what he done to Yair. And you go out and see how well documented he is about making adjustments and making changes and different layers to his game. And I've said to you before, mixed martial arts is like cooking a dish. And it's so befitting that cooking with Volk is like this dish. And the dish that is Volkanovski has so many different ingredients to it. It's like a mixing bowl. It's like a petri dish of skills and ingredients, and you're just chucking everything in there. You're talking heavy, hellacious ground and pound, aggressive elbows, just bombs from the top, frames, anti-jiu-jitsu, offensive wrestling, defensive wrestling, striking, feints, fakes, everything you want to say, any word, footwork, anything you can think of, you're chucking it in there. You're chucking it in the mixture, and what's coming out of it is this incredible final product, and the chefs that are cooking it all are the likes of the smartest mixed martial arts minds in the game. And it's just a scary prospect, and I've got to stop talking about it because I'm getting my heart rate and my blood pressure high.
It's like you've seen Rocky 4.
Yeah.
Kind of reminds me of, like, I mean, obviously Ivan Drago lost, but it's like, you know, they've got all the scientists and all the best guys. They're like creating the perfect superhuman fighter. That's what it feels like. He really is. Yeah, he is. Again, I'll say it again. It's a privilege to watch. But I think we should move on to the co-main because
yeah, for sure.
A fight that I got right. We got there.
We got there eventually.
Yeah,
we got there eventually.
Fight that I predicted right. So I was happy about that. It went. Yeah. Wow. That is really. Honestly, I could not believe what I was seeing. I was like, how do we keep getting fight after fight after fight? And it's just they're so good. And I will say, even though he lost, I have to say, Brandon Moreno is one of the most satisfying fighters to watch on the feed.
Great word.
He really is. I love his stance, the way he slips in and out. That jab, he's just popping out. It's just beautiful. It's like art. And, you know, on the feet, Pantoja impressed as well. A bit more scrappy. He was willing to take and trade. But his chin was held in there, and he took one to give one, you know, and it was the striking was fairly close, but again, I said the grappling would be the difference maker, and that's what it was. It was Moreno almost seemed like that he couldn't stop it. You know, he'd get against the cage, and Pantoja, it didn't matter how tired he was getting that takedown every time, and that was obviously the difference maker. That body triangle locked up. We talked about the effectiveness of those, and you know, it proved that. And Moreno did actually do well to get out of them a couple of times, but So, sooner or later, he was finding himself in the exact same position, and that was the difference maker. I think I had it 48, 47. I thought it was close. Maybe 49, 46. I wouldn't have been mad at either. But Pantoja definitely deserved enough for the win. And what about that post fight as well? That really tugged at the heartstrings a little bit, man. I gotta say,
wow.
I felt, I can't believe the booing. I hate that when that happens. I don't think any fighter deserves that. I think
if you, the worst.
Yeah,
on record, I'll go on record and say that anytime. Worst.
If you need to put yourself,
Vegas is the worst, by the way. All I could think when I was watching that fight card. Sorry to interrupt, but I have to quickly say this. But
rant away.
I have to say this. It was Robbie Lawler in his retirement fight. It was the last prelim. And I'm looking around the arena and it's basically empty. And I'm thinking, why in the world have they gone to Vegas? I know why. Of course, I actually know the answer logistically why they've gone to Vegas, because of how big of an event it is. They get the footfall, they make it a big event. You've got the expos, all of these different things. I understand that. But in terms of an actual night of fighting, why in the world they didn't get the September card in Australia and make it International Fight Week actually in Australia? Because the fact that there were empty seats on a main prelim of Robbie Lawler's was just offensive to me anyway.
More.
Then they were booing, to be honest, they had no chances to boo this fight card because it was stupid. But then they were booing grappling exchanges, they were booing Pantoja. I just don't like any of that, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, I think a lot of it was the Mexican presence, obviously, which I mean, fair enough.
Yeah, but
I guess,
you clap after that. I don't care. Yeah, like, this is MMA, you know.
In the fight, yeah, but after you have to applaud it. Especially that fight was, that's a once in a lifetime fight. I loved that fight. I thought it reminded me of, and I keep drawing comparisons, but Prochazka versus Teixeira. It had everything. It just personified mixed martial arts. It wasn't just on the feet. It wasn't just grappling. It was everything in between. It was everything put together into one, and it was a great fight. And I thought both guys left everything in there. And yeah, go.
I'm gonna say a statement. You tell me how you feel about it. Okay. That fight, that co-main event. By the way, I have no idea how you would ever top the events that we saw before that. But that co-main event is in the pound for pound, I would say top 3 highest skilled fights we've ever seen.
Oh, that's a tough one.
And tell me why not, if you don't believe so. That's a good
point. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to think of other fights that would belong in that conversation.
Tell me a fight which has crisper boxing, better transitions, slicker jiu-jitsu, defensively, offensively, conditioning, pace, places the fight went, all well-roundedness.
Are you talking attacks. From both fighters?
I'm talking everything in terms of just everything in MMA. I'm talking stepping elbows, lead elbows. I'm talking rear naked chokes. I'm talking body locks. I'm talking climbing up the back. I'm talking takedowns. I'm talking transitions. I'm talking throws. I'm talking combinations. I'm talking absolutely outrageous chin of Pantoja. I'm talking good footwork and good head movement from Moreno, where he was throwing that long left hook and stepping through with that left foot and throwing that hook on, as he just was pivoting. That is some of the best boxing I've seen in a very long time in mixed martial arts. The footwork of Moreno in those earlier rounds sometimes was so sharp, the way he was cutting angles and rolling out shots. So that's the reason I asked, just because I'm watching all of those positions. The more
I'm thinking about it, yeah.
And I'm saying Moreno is pound for pound, like just skill wise, is one of the best, like sort of ever, just in terms of everywhere it goes. Because these flyweights now, you look at the flyweight division, and the reason you said, I think it was you that said, or someone else said to me, that it's sad that Moreno's not building any consistency with his sort of title wins. I don't think that's Brandon Moreno. I think that's going to happen to absolutely anyone that gets that flyweight belt. I don't think anyone's going to hold it for a long period of time, because it's hard to get bigger discrepancies in skill at flyweight, because they're all so freakishly well-rounded at the top. You don't get these big gaps where people can consistently stay at the top. They don't have a crazy grappling advantage or a crazy striking advantage, because anyone you come up against is going to be elite pretty much everywhere it goes. Whether it's a Kai Kara France with some elite defense defensively and anti-jiu-jitsu wise, where he can stop a lot of attacks and set up his heavy hands, or it's a Brandon Moreno who can also take your back, but defensively be very good. The skill level at flyweight is just too high.
Yeah, I think it's actually laughable when you consider that only a few years ago they very nearly shut the whole division down. Imagine that.
Wow.
Imagine what we would have missed out on. It's really. I'm so happy. It's
some of the best fights
back
ever.
where it belongs. And you said last week about making them more than being main events, and I couldn't agree more, because they are always the most exciting fights all the time. They're never not good. I think I just run it back to what you said about the high level. I think what I'd put up there is the Adesanya Pereira 2, that first opening round or so was probably the most high. That's the most high level striking I've ever seen.
Not long enough
in a fight.
Not long enough. And that's
not
MMA even.
Yeah,
that's my point.
Disciplines.
I'm just saying MMA.
You might be right.
I'm saying MMA.
You might be right.
I'm saying there could be sweeter kickboxing fights potentially out there. I'm saying there could be sweet grappling fights. Maybe the Gamrots and the Sarukians and things like that. They're fun grappling exchanges.
I would actually say Moreno and the fourth one. Yeah,
This is what I'm saying.
The first one, either the fourth and the first one. I've said before, that little sequence, that grappling sequence. I rewatched it again the other day.
Yeah, same.
Where I saw it. I love that. Where
the ankle
Figueiredo,
pick.
is it Figueiredo? Yeah, Moreno goes to take down, Figueiredo reverses. Yeah, the tripod sweep and then the guillotine attempt. It's like that 10 seconds or so. It's just unbelievable. Moreno is just. I really feel bad for him, because he's so high level, and to lose it, he was landing the cleaner shots. But again, it was the grappling that made the difference, and so Pantoja absolutely fully deserves it. It went how I thought it was going to go, but it was absolute war.
3 wins over him.
I know. Again, the psychological thing may have. I wouldn't even say that was a factor. I think Moreno knew how good he was, both himself and Pantoja, and he knew, he was like, right, I'm going to go in there, put everything I can on the table, but it just wasn't enough. Pantoja just had more in him, and it was fine margins, but he did enough, and you can't go wrong.
For my liking from Brandon Moreno.
Yes, not enough liver shots. That's what he had so much success with that against, Cara France. I think maybe afraid of the takedown, maybe like a counter off a body kick. Possibly that was it, but Pantoja fully deserved it.
That's a fair point, because he did get taken down and controlled a few times, and Pantoja is so dangerous when he got to the back. And the thing that impressed me so much is, I know grappling's his realm and his world, but how aggressive he was to just go to body locks, which is going to gash your legs out, and to really go for these rear naked chokes and try and set up these submissions and just be so tenacious. His conditioning was one of the most impressive things, and he says just on repeat how hard I've been working, and you can just see that, because the amount of, I think at the end of it, I think he just out-willed Brandon Moreno ever so slightly in some positions, where it was just a fact of he just had more strength and tenacity in some positions, where he was just like, I'm not letting go of this, or I'm not going to stop doing this, or I'm not going to let you knock me down, or I'm going to hit you bloody hard in the pocket. And obviously, the skill level of Pantoja is just freakish, especially when he gets into grappling exchanges. He's so dangerous, so dangerous. And you have to really respect his jiu-jitsu, but a really impressive champion. And like you said, that post-fight press...
I was nearly tearing up.
That post-fight interview. But my mother raised me by herself. Are you proud of me now, Dad? Are you proud of me now? Like, looking into the camera, it was weird. It was sort of, you got these flashbacks into him as a child, and like being in the favela and his dad like walking out the door, and it was like Ratatouille, and you're sort of seeing into the past, into his eyes. It was a really interesting moment, a powerful moment, and one that really caught me off guard. And the way that he just looked into the camera, you just looked directly into his eyes, because not everyone makes eye contact, and he just looked straight into as if he was talking to his dad, because when you're looking at a camera lens, it looks like an eye, and it looked like he was just looking his dad in the eye with so much emotion, and it was a really intense moment. But that just capped off one of the most intense nights of fights, really.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I think the reason it's such a good moment is because, obviously in the fight game in MMA, you need to be, half of the work is outside the cage, it's on the microphone, but when I say that, it's not necessarily about being a showman, being
true,
having a facade, being your Colby Covingtons and all that, and your Conor McGregors. It's, you have to put in the work, but putting in the work doesn't mean you can't be authentic. You don't. Again, it's as I said about Volkanovski. You need to be vocal. It's something that was a problem with Leon until he really, until he won the belt and
For sure.
the outpour of emotion. That is half of the reason why everyone is so sold on him now, because it was real, because he put himself out there on the microphone and he showed who he really was. And Pantoja did exactly the same thing. And I think that moment is really going to help him gain fans, gain traction, and just increase his status. And that's not. It's not always about the numbers and the stats. Like, I don't mean in that disingenuously. It's just it's nice to see that. I think we just need to see that more from fighters, rather than putting on this stoic facade of I'm a fighter, blah blah blah, or the opposite end of the spectrum, the extremes. As I said, the Colby Covingtons, the loudmouth trash talking. Sometimes it's just being vulnerable and being yourself after those big wins, or in those even in the down moments as well. I think that's equally as important.
Like a Brandon Moreno.
Exactly. And I think that can help so much in showing who a fighter truly is. And I think Pantoja, and obviously not in his intention to do that, but it was a really touching moment that I think a lot of people are going to resonate with.
Sure. One moment that I resonated with from the card was an absolute blue chip, which I said before the fight card. I said, I have no idea. People have no basis to possibly call Bo Nickel a fraud. And I rewatched his fight. Not difficult to do, because you can watch his fights quicker than I'm trying to think of something you can do within under 10 seconds. And my mind has drawn a blank.
His entire fight discography, or whatever you want to call it.
It's ridiculous.
You could be in and out in about 5 minutes, if that.
I want to... You know what? I'm going to start with your thoughts. Give me your thoughts on the fight, because I've rewatched the highlights of the fight, and I remember obviously how impressive it was, and we'll come on to it. But I rewatched it, and I got a really big takeaway. But I want to hear your thoughts on it first.
I mean, it was exactly how we knew it was going to be domination. I think again, it is MMA; anything can happen. And he did get caught with that one shot. I think it was actually a good credit to Val. It was actually quite a clean right hand. He caught Bo pretty quick. What I noticed was Bo was standing so wide and so far apart, but he came in so quickly. It's just like out of nowhere, he just fly in with those looping hooks. And maybe, it worked then, but maybe there's a little bit of vulnerability there. I don't know. His chin was out quite a bit, but he did have the ability to just dart backwards when he needed to. And obviously those power in those hands, which we talked about before, on full display. And I feel for Woodburn, but he stepped up to the plate, and he's always going to deserve credit for that on just a few days' notice. Going from mowing lawns to, fighting in Vegas, you have to give him credit. Regardless of the outcome, so I have to applaud him for that. But yeah, obviously it was a vintage performance from Bo. But I wouldn't say it really, because of the circumstances. I think we need another step up. We need a step up in competition.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
of course. I don't think there's any point in playing the patient game with him. I think we know how good he could be and can be. I think I'd want to see him. I don't want to see him fast track. But I want to see. I don't want to see him fast track, but I just want to see that level of competition. Just a big, significant step up. Maybe someone, I'm trying to think of a name, maybe, but I don't know off the top of my head. But I'd like to see a higher step up in competition for sure, because he's got talent, and I want to see him. I want to see him keep just fighting. I want to see him fight more. That's all I want.
I don't think that we have to go a step up, and I'll tell you why. And I am one of the biggest advocates of Bo Nickel being one of the most blue chip prospects we've ever seen. Full stop. And if you're paying attention, you'd probably see it along those lines to some degree. And the thing with Bo Nickel is why I think you slowball him. Not only does he have very minimal experience in MMA, yeah, of course he could go up to higher rankings and do, I'm sure, very good things. I'm sure that conversation is there to be had. But he is so young, and he just has the ability to become so incredibly talented and to literally build a division almost around him. He has that sort of level of credential that the only thing you're going to do by giving him fights outside of the top 15 is you're going to also be able to get him to fight more regularly, first and foremost, because when you start getting into those rankings, those fights start becoming a little bit more infrequent. You're not getting as much fight time. You're not getting as much experience.
It's true.
Whereas when you're unranked, you're going to be able to get a lot more fights, because as soon as you're 15, there's only so many fights that you can really sort of take, and people are booked up, and then you can only get that one, and that falls through, and they don't want to fight backwards, and the politics all starts getting a bit messy. You always see that with it. That's why it's exciting when people are unranked, because they get a lot more matchups, and they can get things popping a lot more quicker. So we can get that experience in quicker. I don't think there's any need to rush him. But when I watched that back, there's going to be a side of people I knew that were always going to say, and there's some truth to it, of course, yes, he should have won. Yes, he should have done all that because he's the biggest betting favourite ever. Yeah, of course. It's one thing to say. It's another thing to actually go out and look at a man that imposing, by the way, and stand on...
What a weird frame, right?
Terrifying frame.
God.
Yeah, we need to mention that. Seriously imposing, brightest of lights. People can say, oh, it's an easy fight. It's on his debut. People are having the wrong conversation. That's, I would argue, a way tougher fight than Tresean Gore. Because I believe he goes in to fight Tresean Gore with good amount of confidence, knowing that his skill set is superior, he's going to take him down and probably beat him up. But now what's happened is he's got a last-minute replacement who he is now the biggest betting favourite in history. So quite possibly there's no room for a mistake. He should win. He's won, essentially, before the fight has even started. So you've never been under more pressure to perform and to succeed. And you're coming against someone, he's actually undefeated, but he's a powerful, powerful human being with 7 knockout wins. I mean, if you slip up against him, I mean, which he nearly did, you can get cracked.
Yeah, he rolled with that shot. So it's actually a testament to him. He rolled with that shot very well. So, you
can get cracked and put out. But I watched the highlights of Bo Nickel, and one thing that stood out, and you may find it sounding crazy until you go back and watch it, but if you go back and watch what he just done there with his boxing, there are a lot of similarities in the way he moves and covers distance and has that speed of footwork.
I know what you're going to say, yeah.
To who?
Are you going to say Volkanovski?
No.
Because that's what I'm seeing. I mean, not in the same level.
Essence of Volkanovski, 100%.
That's what I saw.
But the way that he moved in with his shots, the precision he landed with, and the variety that he landed with in terms of straight lefts, overhand lefts, long uppercuts, hooks, with that precision, he landed every shot flush to the target, pinpoint accuracy on an open standing target in the center of the cage. That is extremely difficult to do. To do that with the footwork, the speed, the precision, the timing, the confidence, and the actual ability and skill set just to do that anyway. But he really looked like Sean O'Malley when I saw him do that.
Yes, that's it.
When you go back and watch that fight, and you go back and watch the fights of Sean O'Malley against the likes of Matinho, and you go back against a Julian Paiva, there are a lot of similarities.
Yeah. There was that shot, that left hook, exactly like that one he lands on Eddie Wineland. You know the one where he rocks him? With that left hook, exactly.
And he steps back.
You're right.
He steps back, and he almost steps back so fast he loses his footing, because it looks like Dash from The Incredibles as they step in and out on Rage. And it's so weird to watch. It's almost like they've sped up, and they've done that double step before. And the speed that Bo Nickel moves into range with is so petrifying for absolutely anybody in that division. Say what you want about anyone's skill set against him, because the speed he covers distance and manages to get to that single leg. And the thing that I loved that was so impressive with what he done is in that first round, he not only showed that level change that he does so well, and he shows it so consistently because he does it to set up his hand so perfectly, he also got in on the shot, knew it wasn't there, just bumped his shoulder into him and rolled and bounced straight back out of range, and then went back to his hands. And he just showed him, oh, by the way, I can get to your hips absolutely any time that I want, so you better be a little bit more careful. And all that does is set his hands up even more. And now he's got you second guessing. And now we have to remember that his mum's been a lifelong boxer, which people forget. He's a family of purebred athletes of the highest degree. So we're looking at some really, really promising future years for Bo Nickel. And like I said, he's striking. And he said he wants to finish his career being the highest caliber at everything, Muay Thai, Jiu-Jitsu, and we have everything on tape to say that he's going to go and do that. And we're watching it unfold in front of our very eyes. And his boxing right there looked like a Sean O'Malley to me. And the sky is the limit for Bo Nickel.
Yeah.
And I'm on record with that.
Yeah, the improvement in such a short amount of time to transition from just pure wrestling into MMA. And it's just remarkable how good he looks on the feet. It's like he's been doing it for so much longer than he has. And I guess that's what you get when you just get a natural, just freak athlete like that. They're able to adapt. They're able to just learn these things and just completely grasp them like
he
it's
looks
nothing.
so natural.
Exactly.
The way he moves is not how a wrestler moves. That is not a wrestler's overhand. His single leg to overhand left is one of the most picture-perfect overhand lefts in MMA. You're not going to find many nicer wrestler overhands in MMA ever than Bo Nickal's, and we've seen it about 3 times. And you can say it's on the opponents, but I'm just saying mechanically, watching how he goes to that single leg with that speed and throws that overhand left with so much accuracy, honestly, on the nose, is just super refined for such an early prospect.
I will say, I think the only downside to that card, even though it's probably it might have been my favorite night of fights in. I might say ever. Yeah,
ever.
I think the only one I can compare to. I think the only main card, if I'm just strictly about the main card, I would say might be better was 261 with that was Usman Masvidal 2, Rose Zhang. Number 1.
That was the night of fights. I believe I can actually almost remember every finish.
Yeah, man.
And there was something like a heel hook. There was a one-arm rear naked choke. I believe Randy Brown. I think someone broke their leg.
Cruz. Yeah, Weidman broke his leg.
One broke his leg. Cruz got dropped.
The fight before that, Cruz nerve. I love that card. It was unbelievable.
I can't remember what happened last week. I'm not exaggerating. I cannot remember fights. I can't remember anything. There's too many going on.
There's so a lot going on.
But I can literally remember that whole fight card. So it's so crazy.
Would you say it's better then? I don't know. This might be.
I would.
Maybe.
Yeah, I would.
You think so?
Yeah.
You know what? I think I might agree with you actually.
Because big things were happening and there were crazy finishes and whatnot. Yeah, for sure. There were. And this isn't recency bias. It's just pound for pound how I saw it. But I've never seen a card. I always say the first fight of the night sets the tone. And the first fight of the night was a fight of the night on any card in history. It was absolutely insane. And somehow and some way, it topped it every single fight. Whether that was, and I'm going to rattle through a couple of them, a Denise Gomez absolutely emphatic victory over Yasmin, who is an outstanding prospect at 10-0,
undefeated,
who got absolutely buzzsawed with the quickest finish ever. If it was Alonzo Menafield with an aggressive submission over Jimmy Crute, who potentially looked like he was going to retire.
I thought they were going to give him a
Tatsio Taira, who again at flyweight is just another dominant looking prospect.
Actually, I actually want to say I think he looked. His body language said it. Obviously, I think he was a bit disappointed with himself. Yeah, I do.
I think I think
he could have done a lot better. Yeah, he got dropped in that first. Was he dropped? Yeah, he did get dropped. Didn't he? He did. Oh my god, my bet party was just shitting itself in that last 5 seconds. And he rolled for the mountain of guillotine.
Yeah.
That was seconds away from him. He was going to get that because if he flattened his hips out. I can't remember what the name of the guy who was fighting. That it would have been done and done. He was seconds away from going out. But if he flattened his hips, dropped all his weight, he would have been tapping straight away. Very, very close there. Credit to him to hanging in there because he went for that a lot of the times. Couldn't really get it. Tyra sort of maybe didn't respect it after the first few attempts at that guillotine, and just said, "I'm going to ignore that and keep going." He threatened with the Von Flu.
Yeah,
but he was quite in that half guard.
It's so
it was
funny
a bit
that happened because I was literally in the training room this very week, and I was saying to one of my friends, I done the first ever session of jiu-jitsu I've done it with him, and anyone that's ever rolled jiu-jitsu for the first time, they'll be guilty of, unless they come into it with existing knowledge, they'll be guilty of just seeing someone's neck thinking, oh, his neck's there. I'm just going to grab that and choke that. Yeah. That's easy. This is easy, this game. And someone's just squeezing on a neck and wrangling on it. And someone will always hold on to a guillotine or an attempt of for way too long. And the first thing my friend ever said to me was, by the way, don't hold on to a neck, you'll get von fluid. First thing ever said to me. But you always see it happen in high-level mixed martial arts, but you don't see the von fluid choke happen an awful lot. And obviously OSP somehow just managed to always get it. But it's a very underutilized weapon, and I did think if he was going to be able to step through and tripod up and manage to get the downward pressure, but he didn't in the end.
Yeah, I mean, if he was in side control, it would have been done. Yeah, I could see he was trying to look for it, trying to fish his leg out, but he couldn't get there. Still, an impressive performance. When did you start training? Are you training now, or was it just like a one-off thing?
I've always, every now and again, when I've managed to just put aside the time and the right day for me to train with friends, gone and done a little bit, whether it's Muay Thai, whether it's a little bit of boxing, some jiu-jitsu. Because the thing is now, what I realised the other day is, don't get me wrong, when I start, it's not like, oh, I'm going to be, because I watch so much, I'm going to be a blue belt. No, I'll still be white belt capabilities. I'll still be very, very white. But the thing is that I'm starting to realise now is, because of how much I watch and because I'm in training rooms of such high level coaches.
It helps. It does help.
Oh my God. I didn't realise how many things of late I'm picking up, just skills and tricks and details and just adjustments. And that's not the same as being able to go and execute that in a live role.
Of course,
Of course not. But knowing it, and knowing at least the steps to take for adjustments to make, or defensive positions you want to be in, or protocol to escape a body triangle, or whether it's an adjustment to this position, or whatever it may be, or how to correctly execute the single leg, and where you want the head positioning, and how you want the body posture. So many different details that I've realised I've picked up, because I thought about it the other day, and this is a side tangent, and we're sort of just petering off the card, and I was just going to get into a little combo, to be honest, just to see how you sort of, how you seem getting on with things, because I thought we'd have a little catch up anyway, because next week's card's not too exciting. So
I'm not bothered. I love MMA, but I am not.
Yeah, no, I just thought we'd have a little catch up. Why not? But I thought about it, and I thought I'm so blessed recently, because I think about it on paper, and even just the last couple of months, where I've gone to Bangkok Fight Club, where you've got sort of Trainer Gay, one of the best Muay Thai coaches there, with his team that I'm luckily enough to film in. Whether it's Bangtao with Brad Riddell and the Hickman brothers, very fortunate enough to be in and listen into the training rooms and listen into details and small details of their training. Whether it's in London with Brad Pickett and Ashley Grimshaw, whether it's in Australia with Joe Lopez, whether it's, I'm just, so many training rooms recently that I've just seen such high level work, and I'm starting to look back on it and just think, wow, I'm super, super blessed and fortunate.
Exactly, absolutely.
And I've not really thought of it in that sort of vein as I have done recently. And especially now when I'm watching fights and I'm starting to understand them from such a better level, just personally as a fan.
Of course, yeah. That's what I got from training as well.
Yeah, and I'm starting to see the dividends of it, right?
Yeah, and obviously I'm nowhere near. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm sort of expert in grappling, because of course I'm not. I've only been training for like
frequently
a year and a half. Yeah, well, I haven't since uni. I'm trying to find a gym back home, but
go down to top team.
How far is it from me? Actually, I don't want to dox myself.
No. Let's say yourself. Right, I'll tell you. It's Morden. It's the end of the Northern Line. So I go to sort of. Yeah, I go to.
Oh, it's really close to me.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I thought it was, because it's.
Don't get too close.
I know you're in South London. You can obviously say that, but it's south of the river, and it's relatively easy to get to. But you should go there, because they have really good jiu-jitsu classes. Actually, you have someone called Mike that takes that a lot of times, and he's a skilled grappler.
There is something about it. It's jiu-jitsu specifically. Once you start training, it's like a whole new world, and you gain a whole new just appreciation for that aspect of it. There's so many little details, and it requires so much attention and just the dedication to really add stuff to your game. It doesn't come easy unless you're someone like Bo Nickel or something, but I mean, it's so it requires that you put in the effort and you'll get a lot out of it. That's what I realized from it.
The repetition of it, right?
Exactly, yeah. And it's so satisfying when you apply those things into your game, into your sparring, and then you start to get the reward out of that. You see, you try something and you see it work, and then you look back and you can see the progression you've made. And I think back to when I had my first competition, and I just think how much better I am now. And I'm not great by any means. I'm an amateur by all things considered, compared to black belts and everything like that.
Well, yeah, you're comparing yourself to the 1%.
Yeah, of course, but that's okay. But everyone's on their own journey of learning, and that was, for me, that was difficult. It was difficult to really not compare myself to other people, worry about how much better or worse I am, because I'm compared to some of the other guys who I was training with. Some of them they're big dudes, a lot of them like 15, 20 kg on me, and a lot of times that didn't matter. But a lot of times it did. Sometimes I get my ass kicked, and you'd be like, damn, I've got improvements to make.
Yeah.
But what I learned, it wasn't about the other people. It wasn't about trying to one up them. It was about just myself.
Yeah.
And what I can do to, stop getting submitted in certain ways, or, there was noticeable holes in my game that I kept submitting to. I was like, okay, let's work on that and let's learn. And it's such a great thing. And I encourage anybody to do it. And all my friends hate me because I don't shut up about it, but it's
you're
true.
part of the cult.
Yeah, man, I can't help it. It's a privilege to learn it. I love it.
And that's definitely an interesting thing that you brought up about sort of a comparison to others. And I think that's something for me personally, where if I were to, this is where I'm quite excited with jiu-jitsu, because I knew that's a big hurdle for a lot of people, but also it would have been a big hurdle for me had I started that X amount of years ago. But where I've been in the gym setting, the weightlifting setting, since I was probably sort of 18, I've gone through that whole cycle of being in those sort of environments where it's very easy to compare yourself to others on, obviously in jiu-jitsu, it's going to be on skill set, right? And on rankings and on belts and on executions and submissions. But in the weights room, it's going to be on physique, it's going to be on look, it's going to be looking at the person at the top of the gym who's in crazy shape, who's got these crazy back, and he's ripped and ribs. And that's the equivalent of the black belt, right? When you're looking in the room and they're rolling omoplatas and they're twisting people up and getting twisters and whatnot. And it's a very sort of similar setting and mindset where you're very exposed to the people at the 1%. You're very exposed, and that discrepancy is made very clear every time you see it. And it's a very tricky mindset shift to be able to acknowledge that. And the switch that was for me personally, when that changed, was I walked into the gym one day and I looked at this fella that I'd always seen in there. He was in ridiculous shape. I was in terrible shape. I was all 17, hated the way I looked, seriously skinny, super self-conscious. I looked at him, and as you do, you think, oh, mate, I wouldn't mind having that rig. Can I just have that? I'll do a few press-ups and I'll look like that. But one day it sort of hit me, and I thought every time someone looks at me, they don't see what I don't look like. They only see what I do look like. Not saying I was doing it for how other people perceived me, but what I mean by that is they only see what's in front of them. So there's no point in me putting time and energy and focus into something else. That's irrelevant. I just need to try and put all of that into actually improving this final version. And there was a there was a mindset shift where I thought, oh, okay, I'm putting too much energy into what other people are doing, or what I am not, or what I don't look like, rather than actually my own development. And I can see in jiu-jitsu, I feel like I'll even give myself just a little bit of a head start, because I'm very happy to not compare. I'm very happy to know nothing, quite literally, when you start.
Yeah, and that's kind of exciting in a way, knowing nothing,
Because when you know nothing, you realise you have everything to learn, as cliche as that is. You really do. And I think sometimes the more you study things, and I think you hear this a lot in jiu-jitsu, you get black belts that say you actually only realise how difficult the sport is when you become a black belt, because you realise how much more there is to learn, because you have so much knowledge and so much nuance, and you realise there's even more levels to it. You realise it's an infinite sum game. So it's pretty exciting.
And I will say, I'm not going to say you're like this, but you do get, there's a lot of you call it armchair analysts, right? Guys, oh yeah, okay,
For sure.
I can handle myself. I know these moves. I can do them. They haven't trained before.
No.
And I'm not saying you're like that at all, because
I
obviously you've had
couldn't
the
be
privilege
further
of
from
working.
that.
Yeah, you've had the privilege of working with some
I
of
look
the,
at people I look at people doing simple setups and thinking even that's impressive.
And it's exactly, and it's alien when you go in there. You think you know how you. I mean, I was guilty of this because I watched a lot of UFC before, a little bit. Yeah, I watched a lot of UFC before I even started training. I was like, oh, I think I could do a rear. Like, I think I'd have to do a rear naked choke or an armbar. You don't know shit, and then you get in there. You're like, fuck me, this is absolutely. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. And then, but in a way, I was kind of grateful for feeling like that in a way, because learning to just completely scrap that mindset,
for sure.
or the way I was thinking, and then, learn those abilities made it even more satisfaction.
Sure.
Like what's the word I'm looking for? Satisfactory. Like it was great to learn and just, realize I don't know how to do these things, and that's okay. And then when you're able to apply those moves, and when you do have them, and you get your own game plan, you build and you shape your own sort of game, because everybody's different. That's what's beautiful thing about jiu-jitsu. Everyone's body caters
different
to different game. Yeah, everyone's body caters to a different game plan. Different things work for different people, and what things people are better at than others. Like for me, I get people who kick my ass with guys with top pressure, who just will flatten you out, use kimuras, Americanas, everything, just make your life a living hell. And I couldn't be further from that, because it doesn't work for me.
It's not your game.
Yeah, exactly. I like being off my back. I like triangles. I like being slippery, and I get a lot more satisfaction out of that.
Yeah.
And for other people, it might be the complete opposite. They might hate that, but being able to cover all your bases and learn every aspect of the game, I think, is a goal anyone should be trying to achieve if they're in there, and that's what I'm trying to do. So
I think the thing for me where I was quite lucky is when I started sort of watching it, I had a good core group of friends, of a few people that were training a lot at that time. So they were quite new to the sport, but they were training a lot. So they would maybe have sort of they'd probably have about 12 months of training behind them. So I could roll with them, or I could spar with them, or I could strike with them, and I could instantly be shown the level, and they were only a year deep. So I went straight into the sport with humility anyway, because people that were doing it for a year would show me the level of jiu-jitsu, would show me the level of just...
It really is credible, isn't
it?
And
and it's great. And every time that I maybe go and train with them, obviously I've not done anything intermittently, because I'm only doing it every so often with them.
And they've got even better.
And of course, and they're training once, twice a day, and I get to see the next level. So, and these are with hobbyists is probably too strong a word,
that's
but these are amateurs that like some of my...
I mean, once or twice a day, that's crazy.
My mate trains like a professional. He's got an amateur fight coming up in the O2 in Bournemouth. Frankie Gibson, one of my longest friends, I'm going to go and film and do the episode of GBTV on, because he trains at GB Top Team now. But he trains once or twice a day. He's dialed in. He doesn't drink. He's diet's on point, his cardio's on point. He trains like a professional athlete, and this is what you would maybe call an amateur,
And you said he's been doing it was he one of the guys you said he's been doing it for a year or longer?
So when I first started doing it, he'd probably had like 12 months head start sort of thing.
Right, yeah. And that's only for that amount of time, right?
Exactly.
The levels are so different.
Exactly.
When I rolled with my coach, it was like, it's like, it's not everything I did. It doesn't matter. He's got an answer for it, and he wasn't even going 100%. Like this was, granted, I had a lot less experience then, but even then it wouldn't have mattered. Like they'll just counter everything you do. Like they don't need to try, because they know everything you're going to do and exactly what they need to do to just completely
nullify it. For sure.
I remember he just completely like forward rolled into a knee bar on me, and it was just like, I don't even know what the hell's going on right now. And it's a question. It's the level.
It's a question and answer, and in jiu-jitsu, your moves and your sequences are questions, and they will always have the answer, because they've seen that question so many times and they're so well researched. And it's like just doing a really simple Q&A for those people, but that's probably the best way of looking at it, really. But what's been up in your world anyway? How's work been going? How's the hustle? Or has it just been one of those weeks where it's same as we're just getting the grind going?
It's sticking with the grind, really. New video came out yesterday.
Nice. I didn't see it. What was it?
Yes, yesterday. I did the Mexico. A bit unfortunate, actually. I did.
Nice.
I ran back the casuals guide thing.
Nice.
I did it on. I just basically repackaged one of the old videos I written as a casuals guide video, which probably why it didn't work as well. Especially it's probably not as appealing anymore because it's got about Mexico's champions, which now there are only one of. So that's not the greatest. But you know, it's the grind. We carry on. Already on the next one. So it's just we keep going. It's a process, isn't it? So it's more of the same for me. But I'm a bit frustrated with how it's going recently. But that's all right. It's gonna be plenty more ups
always
to
gonna have those. So, you're gonna have those frustrated periods of time.
I don't take it for granted.
No,
I did actually. I will say I did. When with the early success I took for granted. And I thought it was gonna keep being easy. Which was naive when it obviously wasn't. So I'm grateful. My videos aren't doing as well as they could be right now.
That's a good way to look at it.
I can look back.
That's a good way to look at it because it will push for evolution. I promise you that.
Exactly.
It will push for evolution, and almost some of those bad weeks are almost sometimes better. I find, for me personally, are sometimes better than weeks which may have looked like the week before, or plateaus, or sort of same old, because it makes you sit up and take attention a little bit more and think, okay, I need to have a little dive through the analytics. I need to actually have a look at the packaging. I need to have a look at the X's and the O's of everything I've put out and sort of reverse engineer, what the issue is at hand. It's just I've started realizing it's just about being in the game. Like, you've got to be on the field. This is the thing. Like, the longer you're in the game, the easier it is to work it out, because you just give yourself enough thinking time about it, because it could be a month, it could be 3. For me, a couple of things I've stumbled across recently, it's been almost sort of 18 months just to figure out one simple thing which was in front of me the whole time. And I just think about that. I wouldn't have had that Eureka moment if I wasn't playing the game. If I wasn't playing the game every day, if I wasn't being consistent, if I wasn't showing up, I would have never have had that Eureka moment. And I think that's the point sometimes, is it's okay sometimes to not quite think, the next answer or the next step or whatever it may be, because sometimes you just have to keep on, and then the answer will prevail itself at a certain time, So it's just about it's about just, Gary Vee always says it well. He always talks about people cheering from the stands, but he's playing on the field. And you have to just play. You have to stay on the field. The longer you're on that field, the easier you've got a chance of getting a goal. It's almost like you've got one person that's playing 10 minutes and going, oh, I didn't score, I'm subbing myself. And you've got the other person saying, I'm going to play every 90 minutes and I'm going to play the full time, and then I'm going to take penalties at the end because I'm going to get a goal. And it's the equivalent. You're just staying on the pitch for longer. You're giving yourself every chance of just coming up with that solution. And it may be plain and simple, and it may be in front of your eyes the whole time. And you may look at it and think, how did I not think of that? Or why did I not make that simple adjustment?
But you wouldn't have found it.
But you wouldn't have found it unless you play the game. Because it doesn't prevail itself that simply sometimes. So it's been, mate, I don't know. It's been emotional, really, to be honest. Start to finish, UFC 290. It's been an emotional roller coaster. Man.
Unbelievable. I'm almost annoyed because I don't think we're going to get anything like that for a long time. Which sucks.
And nor do we deserve to.
Nah, to be fair, we've run.
And we didn't even have JVM. We didn't even have JVM.
I know, right? We didn't need him. We didn't even need him. We didn't even need him.
We need him next week, headline in the Apex with Kevin Holland. That's what we need.
Oh, mate, that would be good.
That's what they're talking about.
That would be good.
But that pretty much, I think that pretty much wraps us anyway. We're getting about an hour and a half. So, as a good chat, mate. Good to catch up as always. That was an unbelievable card. Good to keep the pod consistent.
What was that, number 5, number 6?
Number 5.
Number 6.
Number 5, this is.
It's number 6.
Number 6, sorry.
Okay, we should probably know this.
Yeah, number 6, sorry. So this week we'll make sure we set up the online socials so we can get the actual platforms on Spotify and Apple Music set up so we can get that. So we'll do that this week for sure. So we'll get out for an audio, because I know people prefer to listen to that than they do on YouTube. Obviously, we'll get the clips out across all channels, but as always, Casuals Encounters with myself, Will from Casuals Corner MMA, and Leo Cooper from Leo Cooper's YouTube channel. As always, take care of yourselves, look after yourselves. Peace.